Well, let's get started. And this is recorded, so folks will be able to view it anytime. We will be sharing it out to all the people that were on the list, and we'll understand that making time during your day is a little bit challenging sometimes. People have schools to run and that sort of thing. So really appreciate you all being here. We're going to talk today about what is actually happening in districts in Riverside County and in Southern California more generally with respect to AI. So this is what's actually happening in AI in schools right now. My name is Damon Torgerson. I'm the CEO of Alludo, and I am going to play a small part in this. I'm just going to be your host. Our main stars are Heidi Baynes, Dr. Heidi Baynes, Coordinator of Educational Technology at Riverside County Office of Education. And she is the developer of the AI Ready Educator program and many other initiatives at Riverside County. Joining her is Dr. Jeff Oldfield. He is the Executive Director of Innovation and Competitive Advantage at RCOE. And together, the two of them work with districts, primarily in Riverside County, on emerging technologies, of which AI kind of rolls underneath that. Obviously, it's a really big piece of that piece right now. We're all talking about it. But they'll be working on the next big thing as well whenever that comes along. So these are folks that are going out to districts. They're working with everybody from superintendents on down to classroom teachers. So they've got a really good perspective, and I'm really excited to have them here. So welcome both of you, and welcome everybody that's making the time to join us. It's really looking forward to having you here. I'll open up to Jeff to maybe just give her a little bit of background about yourself beyond the introduction, just to get folks so they can get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Thanks, Damon. Super excited to be here, and welcome to everyone that's joined. Yeah, I was thinking about this term emerging technology and whether AI. I know we've talked about this a lot, but whether it even fits there anymore. I guess it might be emerged technology in some sense, right? Like it's here. So yes, but I guess in some ways it's evolving as we speak. So it's still emerging. Um, we don't exactly know what the end will look like, and how it all kind of develop. But yeah, so as Damon said, I'm a executive director at Riverside County Office of Ed, under a unit called Innovation and Competitive Advantage. And before that, I spent 14 years at Apple Computers, where I worked with leadership teams across the country and the world in education to think through the ways in which technology might be used to impact student learning experiences, and to change the way in which students gathered knowledge and interacted on a day-to-day basis with their peers and with their teachers. And so spent a lot of time traveling the country doing that. And at the very end of my career at Apple, one of the last conversations I had was with the Ministry of Education in Saudi Arabia. And one of the things that we talked about specifically, one of the most exciting conversations we had with them was talking about AI and the ramifications and the implications of what AI might bring. And so it's certainly a topic that I know all of us are if you joined, you're probably very interested in, but it does seem like it's changing every day. So it's definitely worth talking about.
Well, thank you very much. And Heidi, it's a tough act to follow, but I'm gonna throw it on to you. Just let folks know who you are and what you're doing at Riverside County.
Yeah, my name is Heidi Baynes, and this is my 27th year in education. So my background is pretty much all in the K-12 space. I started as a history, social studies teacher and taught middle school for quite a long time. I've taught um, online, blended, traditional classroom settings. From there, I was a ed tech coach, and then here at the county for almost 8 years as a coordinator of educational technology. And so my reference point is pretty much all classroom educator and administrator focus, which has been really interesting to work with Jeff because we come from two different perspectives and are able to kind of get a holistic view of how AI is affecting the world, both in the schools and outside the schools, and how it's impacting all of us now and in the future.
Well, thank you, and I've had the pleasure of working with the two of you over the last probably 6 months on the AI Ready Educator and those sorts of things, and you are a dynamic duo. So the way this is going to work is that it's going to be a panel. I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm going to give it to the experts to talk. And so with that, Jeff, I just want to start off with kind of what are the guiding principles that are shaping the way that Riverside County is using AI and approaching AI both internally and as you kind of and externally facing?
Yeah, so I guess there's a few things that come to mind. We have been doing since I joined. One of the first things we started was an AI book club, and I'm a big fan of a change management model called ADKAR, and ADKAR is an acronym, but the A stands for awareness. And I think anytime we're asking folks to change, or anytime we're changing ourselves, the first step in changing is becoming aware of the need for change. And one way to do that is to kind of read about something you don't know. And so I thought, let's start an AI book club. And our first book that we read at the county for anyone that wanted to participate was a book by Ethan Mollick entitled Co-Intelligence. And Ethan Mollick is an associate professor at Wharton. He's prolific about AI on LinkedIn. If you don't follow him on LinkedIn, you should. If you're interested in this topic, he's always posting lots of different things. But long story short, at the end of that book club, we pulled a couple of things from it that we've continued to use at the county level. In fact, we've even made some shirts for different conferences that we've done. But the three kind of principles that we took from his book was stay curious, use AI, and be human. And that has stuck with us. And as we think about why we leverage AI, when we leverage AI, how we leverage AI. I think those three things really come to mind. We always want to kind of keep curiosity when I'm thinking about redesigning or helping to redesign classrooms in the county. Part of what I'm thinking through is like, how do we help kids be more curious? When we're thinking about leveraging AI in the workforce, how do we ensure that people remain human and that we continue to foster an environment where collaboration is central to what we do together and then in a workplace environment, but also leveraging emerging tech. This is not something that's going away, so we don't want to shy away from it, but we want to be really intentional in the way that we use it. So I guess that would be some of the principles. There's others, but those are the ones that seem to like they're bumper sticker ready, so to speak. Like they go on a shirt well, and people remember them, and it seems to resonate with people. So I've found that to be really really nice that people can kind of buy into that, and that helps.
Well, yeah, you've got t-shirts, so it's not necessarily just bumper stickers, but you've already
That's
got
right.
t-shirts. Check out our store. We'll have a store up here. So the be human aspect is really interesting to me because there's, if you go on LinkedIn, if you go on Instagram, if you go in any social, right, it runs the whole gamut with educators as to, there's folks that are like, there's no AI in my classroom to AI is going to solve all of our problems. Like that's that whole thing. So from Riverside County's perspective, and again, how you're going out, Heidi, how do you actually translate that from a t-shirt bumper sticker type of situation into the teacher that's in the classroom who maybe they're a little bit worried, maybe they're not worried, maybe they're super excited about it, but how does that translate?
I think for a lot of educators, this came with some fear. It seemed to come on quickly, and it seemed, almost overnight, we had all of these tools that were deployed on education, on teachers, and on students, and keeping that humanity piece at the center of what we do and the conversations we're having, I think helps remind people that, you know, you're in control of this technology, right? Like you can leverage this in the way that you want and the way that you need, but it needs to remain with the human at the center of what we're doing, right? Our critical thinking, our opinions, our thoughts, our ideas are all those things that are driving this machine, and hopefully not the other way around. And so when we work with educators, one of the first things we saw in the potential of the tools and the softwares to help lift some of those tasks off educators' plates. And I think that was exciting for some. And so that was one of the ways that we started to kind of tiptoe into the waters with AI and generative AI, is to show educators, like, these are some of the things that I can do that at one time maybe took you a really long time or were kind of laborious to do. So, here's some ways that AI can benefit you. But over the last few years, we've started to not move away from that, but add to that in the ways that it can really help students, and showing the power that these tools can have to help all students, but particularly those from historically underrepresented groups. The potential for tutoring and differentiation and translation, and there's a whole host of things that these tools can do that are really powerful, that I think helps remove some of those fears, or at least ease some of those fears, because we talk a lot about kind of the downside of these tools, but we need to remember the power that could lie in them to help our students too.
So for that teacher that is maybe uncomfortable, and this kind of gets into my next question, which is like, okay, so what are you actually seeing out there? What are some of the examples that you're being exposed to? But have there been any kind of, I don't know, any aha moments where a teacher is a little bit afraid, or a little bit, I'll say afraid, but maybe it could be just hesitant, just a little bit, doesn't understand, where they're seeing something where it's like, "Yeah, okay, I get it. I see how this can help maybe a disadvantaged student, or someone who's maybe English isn't their first language or something like that." Sorry, Heidi.
I mean, sorry.
That's
Um,
okay.
I mean, one of the things we do is we try to, kind of work with educators incrementally. I mean, I think it's fair to have some hesitancy around this tool, and we should be mindful of how we're using it and how we're using it with our students. And so it's always really exciting to see an educator or administrator who might be a little reluctant in the tools initially, see ways that it can benefit them or benefit their students, and while still respecting that student data privacy piece, and still being mindful of what it outputs and how they're using it. And so, yeah, it's powerful to see it when it helps others, especially if they weren't aware of the things that it can do. We've seen that with some of the tools that we share with districts. Google has some amazing tools that are built into their workspace for districts, and we see those being leveraged by some of our districts and not all of our districts. Everyone's kind of in a different place of where they're comfortable deploying these tools in their districts. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really school by school, district by district, teacher by teacher, and we try to really support people where they are and where they're comfortable, and help them leverage the tools in a way that works best for themselves and their students.
Yes. Well, yeah. And again, it's everybody arrives at things at their own pace, right? Sometimes you've got people who are really keen, and some people who are maybe less keen. And I think that having empathy for that reluctance is
Right.
is really important. Kind of playing off that a little bit more. So, Jeff, do you have any specific examples of where you're seeing within Riverside County, either at RCOE or the districts that you're working with, where you're seeing teaching or operations getting improved through the use of AI?
I probably would frame it slightly differently. I'm not sure about the phrase teaching improved, but I think the maybe learning experiences are improved
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it for sure.
through it.
Mhm.
So because some ways I see this as kind of like a companion, you know. So for instance, we are Heidi mentioned, something like AI tutoring. So where I see kind of, at least in my purview, the things that excite me about AI are things that can allow for learning experiences to happen where students are getting in time feedback.
Mhm.
That is not possible when you have a 1 to 30 ratio on average, right? Like it's just not possible. We haven't we haven't mastered omnipresence. We just can't be in multiple places at once. You can't give all these kids the type of feedback that is really kind of helpful in the moment. So you see tools like, there's plenty out there, Brisk and others that do Snorkel, that do kind of these, in Khan Academy's Khanmigo, these tutoring tools that won't cheat for the student, but are trained. And there's not a perfection here yet, so we're continuing to evaluate them. But at least at the moment, they're pretty Socratic in nature. And so I think we're seeing that across Riverside County. We're doing some pilot programs across the county with different AI tutors. And the goal is, we're starting slow, trying to start intentional, and really try to monitor progress to see how these tools, and if and how they help. I think that's the harder part. The process part's an easy one. I mean, we see it all the time internally. We have a partnership with OpenAI, and we had a pilot group at RCOE that's been using ChatGPT now in their education instance of ChatGPT for a year. And I've seen so many examples of process improvements, whether it's through creating, individual GPTs for specific units to do specific tasks, to just getting some brainstorming ideas on how to have a conversation or how to respond to an email, or, I mean, you name it, I've seen it. And I know our team, we're using it even just for brainstorming image ideas before we go to our creative services team for help with creating items for our website or for, repo team or whatever, right? So it's allowing us to, and this is for me, I'm not an artist, right? But I can think of and describe what I think would be cool. It may be horrible, but I could kind of put it into words, but there's never been something that I could put into words that would then make a picture for me until an LLM happened, right? And now I can do what I've always been able to do, which was describe what I'm thinking, and I get it into a picture form, which has been really useful for when I go to our creative services team and say, hey, can you make something? This is kind of the way I'm going. This is what I'm thinking of. Where always sometimes it would get lost in translation if I just use text. So we're seeing that a lot. I mean, there's other tools. We are seeing lots of use of Notebook LM for digesting information, which is a whole nother thing that as an education institution, we'll have to think about, like, where's the line we draw with all of this. But definitely use is up for process.
Yeah, and I appreciate that the use of your language, because I think the shorthand is teaching improved or something to that effect, but that's, can be somewhat a confrontational, even if it's not intended, versus a learning experience. I think that's the use of your words makes it a more open and safe experience for people to willing to try, who they're just, hey, listen, I'll give this a try. If it's going to replace me, I'm not interested in doing that per se. But
Right.
if it's going to be a partner and it's going to help me brainstorm, then that's a different story. What kind of, I don't know if you guys can share this, Heidi, or but what kind of pilots are you working with with your districts? Are you working on any pilots with districts, and maybe tell us just a little bit about one of those?
We have several different things going on within Riverside County with our districts. They're not necessarily pilots, but things we're trying. One of the things is obviously the AI Ready Educator course that we launched with Alludo. That was the culmination of a couple of years of professional development that we were doing in and around the county, and just taking all of those different things that we were doing and putting them into this one course so that people could pick and choose what they needed. And then the learning was ongoing instead of like a one and done day, and then, go back and you never really have time to digest or sort through that information again. So that was one of the first things we did, was to say, let's take all of this learning and all of these things we've created and put it in one place. But then the other things we're doing that's really exciting is we're trying to kind of come at this at several different angles. So whether it's educators, administrators, community, students, our internal folks, we're trying to meet the needs of all those different audiences. So the next thing we have that we are currently piloting is the Riverside County Seal of AI Readiness and Next Gen Intelligence. It's for our high school juniors and seniors, and we currently have a pilot going with that where students will work through a series of learning modules and eventually earn a seal on their diploma to say that they are AI ready and ready for what's next. And so that's something we're working on that we're really excited about, to bring that learning to students, because it's our hope that some of that is taken off of the plates of our districts, but also equips our students with the skills that they need as they graduate high school and head into college and career. Because it's, everything's changing so rapidly, and here they are graduating, and they're graduating into these spaces where they're expected to use these tools and to leverage them ethically and responsibly, and to leverage them well. And we want to make sure that our students are getting that opportunity. So that's another thing that we're working on. In addition to that, for our primarily middle school students, I think we're open to doing this at other grade levels, but we're working on the AI Student Summit in a Box, that we like to, that's our name for it. Basically, it's a it's a one-day student summit where we take the summit to the school site, and students go through three different, like a mini conference. They go through three different sessions where they do one on ethical, safe, and responsible use, one session on learning to use AI creatively, with this one, in this case, is Adobe Express. And then the other session they do is around, effective prompting and using it as a learning tool. And so they get to go through three different sessions. They get a shirt with our slogans there. And so the shirt is there. But it gives them a little taste of, how to learn with AI and how to leverage it, not just to get answers, but how to use it as a tool to empower them and to empower their learning. So that's another thing we're working on. What did I forget, Jeff? Oh, we have a conference. You want to talk about our conference coming up?
Sure. Yeah, we're doing it. It's not, I guess I don't know if it falls in the realm of pilot. I think all the things that you
Right.
mentioned are pilots. We're doing an educator conference, administrator and educator conference in July, in Riverside County on AI. It's going to be entitled Grounds for Innovation. And if you like coffee, please come, because that's going to be the theme. But it will be a couple of day conference, and there will be a save the date coming out shortly for that. July 29th, 20th, and 30th. And I guess the only other thing I would add, Heidi, is we are doing some true pilots with certain kind of at promise populations around the county and AI tutors. So we are working with Khan Academy and Khanmigo. And our RCOE is providing access to certain groups of students around the county that maybe are historically underrepresented, and giving them a license for an AI tutor through Khan Academy for a year, to see how that might help their academic performance. So it's all very, very new. I mean, I constantly coming from industry, I'm always thinking about ROI, or return on investment, right? And I don't. It's hard, having lived in industry for 14 years, not to think that way. And I think I bring that mindset to anything we try or trying to do, especially in the pilot realm. Is we have to be better at, if we're going to introduce something new, um, trying to make at least an educated guess, if not more, that it's beneficial. Because nobody wants to do the same thing we've always done and expect a different result, right? So yeah, those are, I mean, but Heidi does a great job there on there's lots of different pilots. And then hopefully, I guess the goal would be in 18 months or so, we sit back down and we say, okay, here's the things that worked, here's the things that didn't work. We're not going to just continue to do things just to do them. Like, we'll decide as a team, like, these things seem to make a difference. These are the things that districts felt more prone to, like, want to be part of, and then we'll try to replicate them or create uh, opportunities across the county.
Well, Jeff, you're very good at this because you're giving me very nice segues, so I appreciate that. Um, One of the things that you mentioned earlier is the change management component of AI, of any emerging technology, right? And it's funny because you've got AI or the emerging technologies, which are brand new, and then you've got change management, which is as old as civilization, right? How do you get people to be on board and all of those sorts of things? When you're working with your educators or administrators within the county or within the office itself, what are some of the things that you do or that you might recommend that would help people feel confident and maybe not overwhelmed by all of this emerging technology? What are some of the steps that you found worked within your experience at RCOE?
If that's for me, I'm happy
Yeah, Jeff.
to jump on that. I think for me, and Heidi probably can guess what I'm going to say, but context is everything here. And to lower fear of any emerging tech, contextualizing it in a larger technology history can help. And so, thinking about if we were to look at the last 25 years or 30 years of emerging tech, and how people responded to that, so something as simple as Google and the internet, the graphing calculator, the social media, the iPod, the end of the music industry. The iPod was ushering in the end of music as we know it, right? Um, and there's countless others. We we AI is just one more thing, right? In that larger history of technology that will impact the way in which we live and work. And so I always try to start there, by painting a picture that is contextual. I mean, people were afraid of electricity when it first got rolled out, like really afraid of it. And now we think about electricity, we don't even think twice about it. And yet it's very dangerous. It could, you put a fork in a outlet, you're gonna know how dangerous it is, right? Like it can be not good. But it also probably we can't live without it. In society today, it would be hard to imagine a world where you could live without electricity. I mean, at least wide scale. I suspect AI is going to become that new. It's our new electricity. So it's a new moment in civilization where it will be like that for us. And we're in that moment where a lot of us are really scared of it, just like people were really scared of electricity. So just kind of keeping that in mind. It's not the first technology been afraid of, or the implications of it. It won't be the last one in our history. Um, and somehow as a people, we've managed to make it through, right? And I think that's part of this whole be human, be the human in the loop, be human. Like it still matters that we're different, than we're not artificially intelligent, right? Like we are the opposite of that, right? And so that matters. And I think it probably will matter more as we think about what it means to be a student and how we prepare them for the world. Means trying to make them the most human that we can. Um, but it's going to be an interesting few years. I'll put it that way.
Right. I love that contextualization and whenever there is, it's the old, the weaving looms and all of those sorts of things where more things were created after they were there. When the technology was there was more jobs, they were just different and that sort of thing. And we don't want to lose sight of the fact that folks are going to be negatively impacted for sure, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's all negative. And generally when these technological advances happen, there's more that happens. To use the end of the music industry, now, you know, and I've got a friend of mine who is a lawyer who works with new artists, and a lot of the larger labels are trying to figure out how they can use TikTok to find new artists. So it's just, you know, it's like if you've got a guitar and in a garage, you have an opportunity that maybe you didn't have before because you had gatekeepers
Yeah.
and all of
There's
that.
there's a certain equity, right, that's happening because of the technology. That's the ideal thing, is when ed tech provides equity, and it's a
Right.
great example of that.
Well, and you get that democratization, right? Where you know, and again, those are the fun, happy stories, right?
Sure.
But there is churn along the way, right? And I think the iPod one is really good because when it started to happen, nobody knew what was going on. There was Napster and there was all of these sorts of things, and nobody knew. Showing my age by using the word Napster,
It killed
but
my computer.
nobody knew how it was going to go. That being said, though, in a school district context, and this is for you, Heidi, you know, it's one thing for somebody to upload their Metallica album to Napster or to BitTorrent or whatever, and
I,
maybe Metallica loses some money out of the deal, but it's another thing when we're talking about students and data
right.
privacy and responsible use and all of those sorts of things, because as adults, we have the opportunity to learn from those mistakes. And if I make a mistake with AI and I send out a bad, poorly worded email or something like that, okay, I can recover from it. But when we're dealing with kids, a little bit, you know, there's the kind of the precautionary principle. What are the steps that you're taking or that you're advising people take, and that the districts themselves are taking to encourage that responsible, safe use, and especially with respect to data privacy?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, people are right to have some skepticism, right? Because it is this new emerging tool, and we want to make sure we're protecting students' data, their privacy, their information, all while also helping students navigate this world for themselves. But we've been really mindful of the tools that we use or tools that we recommend. We're sure that the tools that either we're working with internally or tools that we see districts using or we recommend are compliant with student data privacy. Here in California, we have an organization called CITE. It's California IT and Education, and so we use their services, and they have a variety of lists and information that show who has signed the student data privacy agreements, and maybe who's in process of signing those. So we really rely a lot on CITE as an organization to know, like, okay, what tools can we really trust? What tools have been vetted? And and so we're mindful of not like grabbing onto the newest things that we see and deploying a bunch of things out there that we haven't investigated. And we certainly are sure to advise our districts the same way. And the districts we work with are very careful with this as well. I mean, I think that's one of the things that was most worrisome to the folks that we work with was all of a sudden, we get new tools across our desk and in our email just constantly, right? There's constantly a new startup, a new thing that's going to solve all of your problems because AI has been built into it. And I know people on this call are probably in the same boat. And so we've tried to kind of step back from the noise of all of the tools and zero in on those trusted partners, whether it's a pilot or again whether it's recommending or using in our professional development. um, that's kind of how we approach that. We talk a lot about PII, right? Personally identifiable information, and making sure we're not putting that in our systems and not putting student data in the systems, making sure it's anonymized. And yeah, I mean, that's the general guidance that we give to districts. And again, districts have, their own set of policies that they follow as well, but we're mindful, I guess, from a broad perspective to really limit what we're recommending and make sure it's a trusted tool.
Are you working with those districts in helping them craft their policies, or how is that relationship? For
Yeah,
Heidi? Or is Either
Sorry,
one.
no,
Either way.
I mean, I'm happy to. We're kind of taking a guide, more of a guidance perspective than a
Hmm.
policy perspective, right? It's really down to the district level to create kind of board approved policies, and every district's going to kind of understand their own environments, and every district's unique, and they're going to understand where they're at with all of this, and they're going to create the policies that are right for them. What we've tried to do, we developed an AI task force that was county-wide of individuals from other districts. What we're writing is a set of guidelines that any district could use to help them either write their own guidelines, or if they wanted to have something a little bit more strict, like a policy, they could do that. But typically that's not the space kind of we play in as a county office, with the policy perspective.
Right.
I'll just add, the California School Boards Association, CSBA, here in California, they've released policy in a system called Gamut, and a lot of our districts in California and Riverside County subscribe to that. So there is sample policy that's been released from CSBA that people can check out if you're a subscriber to that um, system. But yeah, I agree with Jeff. It's generally just guidelines that we're creating, or not creating, that we're discussing. Yeah.
Sharing.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah, no, one of the things that I mean, people on the call appreciate this, but I think, Jeff coming from industry, and I'm definitely in industry, I am continually pleasantly surprised at how accountable and community focused districts are, and that they tend to, and I think, maybe people can perceive that as bureaucratic, or sometimes whatever, but they really do make a real effort to reach out to the community, to look at policies and procedures. This is AI, but I think it's probably just general as well, where they are really engaging with parents, they are engaging with the community at large. So to me, it's always impressive to see that. And I don't know if people outside of education necessarily see that, but it's absolutely happening where they really are engaging their communities.
I think,
Go
sorry,
ahead,
I was
Heidi.
going to say, I think it's really important when we're talking about guidelines, and we've seen this with our districts, that they've included all the educational partners at the table when they're looking at these things, because that's where you're going to get buy-in, and that's where you're going to, limit some of those fears, is when people have a voice in the conversation. So whether it's, student focused AI panels, or, parents having a say, educators at all the different levels of education, I think that's really powerful when we're creating guidelines, to have all those voices in the room, um, as best as we can.
Yeah, that's really, really good. So I do want to give people an opportunity to ask some questions here. We've got a small group here, but I want to open it up. But before I do that, I kind of want to set you guys up for what's happening in the future. Where do we see AI ready at Riverside County? What do you see happening over the next year or two or three, if you want to be really brave? Where do you see the districts going with AI? Jeff, I'll start with you.
Hmm. Well, I mean, so the I think my hope, so in education, and like I said at the beginning, I've been, I didn't come out of education, but I've been involved in education for a pretty long time, almost 15 years or so. Um, and the term personalization gets used a lot, and I always kind of joke that if you had 10 educators in a room and you asked them what personalization means, you'd get 10 different answers potentially. And I think it's one of those terms that I don't use a lot of, because I'm never quite sure what anyone will think that I mean by it if I do use it. But I'll use it here to say that I hope that we will have a kind of personalization of learning that has never occurred before. And what I mean by that primarily is that if you sit down and you examine the learning experience of any individual child and compare it to the learning experience of any other individual child in the same class, they would be markedly different. And until 2022 or early 2023, I had hoped for that, but didn't think technically it was possible yet. I've started to believe that it's technically possible. So I don't know how you do it without some type of artificial intelligence, but I do think ed tech vendors would be wise to focus on providing tools that would allow learners to have learning experiences that are unique to them. So that, I guess that's one piece of where I think we'll go. If I had a crystal ball, I think technology in general doesn't, as an efficiency tool, we're gonna have all sorts of efficiency plays. If you're doing poor work in your workspace and industry, you're going to do poor work more, right? Like, I mean, this is just the
Faster.
case. So it doesn't make, like, technology doesn't make poor work better, and it doesn't make good work, poorer. So I think the foundations have to still be solid in terms of like what is being done. But certainly, whatever's being done, it will happen much more quickly. And so I think even more we need to focus on the rigor and the task. I read something just yesterday on LinkedIn. I'm going to pull it up really quick. It said something about uh, AI doesn't determine rigor, instructional design does. And to me, that caused me some pause. I thought that's an interesting statement. I want to think about that more. But I think I agree with that. So maybe what we have to continue to focus on, like we've focused on for a long time, is how we're designing learning experiences. But I think we'll be able to design different learning experiences now that AI is here, which I think is the exciting part.
Right, right. Well, yeah, and kind of 2 points there, right? Like, so an old adage from computer science is garbage in, garbage out. So now it's
Right.
like garbage in, lots of garbage out,
Mhm.
if that's what it is. But if you're good at instructional design, and if you're good, then now you may be able
Sure.
to reach
Just
more
multiply it.
people
Right.
with it, right? So there's, and I it is having an effective industry right now where you are seeing a lot more content. But is that content good? Is that content bad? Right? It really
Right.
depends on the person holding the tool at the end of it. Heidi, where do you see things? Where's your crystal ball pointing for the next few years within Riverside County within
Oh
education?
boy, this is being recorded, so you can like come back and source me on.
We will come back and
I mean, I agree with everything that Jeff said. I hope that this is the turning point that allows us to look at the learning experiences we're providing for students differently, and to give them something new and something relevant, something that really speaks to the interests of the students, while developing the skills that we know that they need, those soft skills, the continual critical thinking. So it's not garbage in and garbage out, but elevated experiences where they're getting more out of their own thought processes than they thought was possible. Um, Practically speaking, I think it's going to be baked into just about everything that we're seeing in the classroom. I imagine it baked into new textbook adoptions. I think we're probably seeing that already. Um, I think Jeff said earlier, like a learning partner. I do see a place where that's going to be pretty commonplace for our students, if it's not already. I mean, it may not be something built into their online software right now, but they're certainly using it in a multitude of ways that we could discuss in another webinar, but they're certainly using it as a partner of sorts, whether it's authorized or not. But I do see this as something that will give us the opportunity to, I'm hesitant with these words too, Jeff, like differentiate and individualize instruction in a way that we haven't been able to before. But for our students, coming up, especially from the younger grades, I mean, this is going to be something they won't ever remember not having. This is going to be commonplace for them. And I think within a few years, I don't know that we'll still be having these discussions around, like, should we use it or not, or should educators be using it in the schools or not. I just think it'll be there. Um, and so, I don't want to go too far off topic as far as, like, young learners or early learners and what it might look like for them versus maybe our later elementary and middle and high school. But certainly I think it'll be even more prevalent than it is now, not but just commonplace. It's just going to be there, and how we choose to leverage that and how we choose to help our students leverage it is up to us. We're kind of in the driver's seat right now of shaping what this will look like. And I think these discussions are really important so that we try to get this right on behalf of all these students that we're serving.
Well, I think that's, and we were discussing that the other day, where it's you can look at this emerging technology as an opportunity. You can look at it as a problem, but it's coming, right? So if you express your agency, you have an opportunity right now to kind of shape that future. You have the ability to say, like, what are we going to do in my classroom? What are we going to do in my district? What are we going to do in my community? Because everyone's kind of in the same spot in figuring this out. So we're all figuring this out together. And so I think it is a matter of perspective on how you look at the world, maybe. Not to get too philosophical or pseudo philosophical. I want to thank the two of you. This has just been a wonderful conversation, and I think there's a lot of value in here. And I think a lot of the work that you're doing at Riverside County is just awesome. But we've got a couple of folks there that have hung through the whole thing. Want to give them an opportunity. We've got Dana and David and Chelsea. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Jeff and or Heidi? And just type it into the chat, and we'll go from there. And if not, we'll get on with our day, and I'll share this recording with everybody. Or David and Nicole, sorry. Well, thank you. Okay, well, let's wrap it up, and I will be sharing Heidi and Jeff's contact information when we send this out. As you've heard a few times, Jeff's on LinkedIn, so make sure that you're if you're not on LinkedIn, get on there, because there is a lot of, I know a lot of educators are, I think a lot of people in general are a little bit LinkedIn out in certain ways, but it is the professional, network where people are having these conversations, and there's an opportunity to ask people like Jeff and Heidi questions that are around here, and other luminaries that are out there. So I've not endorsed, or I don't get paid by LinkedIn.
I don't think I've ever been called a luminary. That's a first.
New shirt.
Exactly. The shirts will also be available in the show notes. So thank you both, and thank you all for attending. Really great conversation. Looking forward to the next one. Spoiler, the next one is going to have a case study. We're going to be talking to Tiffany Norton from Desert Sands Unified, talking about their rollout at AI at the district. They're doing some really exciting things. We're really excited to talk with Tiffany. So thank you all, and we'll talk to you soon.